You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is the Waystation Star Wars news and rumors for May 16th, 2023. This is a reschedule because we had some technical difficulties on Sunday. We won't get into that tonight. We're going to get right into the news, and joining me tonight to do all of that is none other than Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to be back. Whenever we miss a show, everything just feels out of whack for a little while, doesn't it? It feels like when we get back into it, it feels like it's been forever and everything is a little more difficult. So it's glad to be back. We're going to have 3 shows like in 5 or 6 days or something like that.
Yeah. For me, it's akin to like taking a loss. Like you're on a winning streak with a team and then suddenly you have a loss and you got to pick yourself back up and get back on it and play the full season. You don't play a game, you play the full season. I don't know what that even means.
You lose to the team you're not supposed to lose to, basically.
right, which is ourselves. So,
but you know why we are always a winner, Albert?
Oh boy.
Because we have amazing Patreon members, and we actually have 2 new members over the last week or so. We have Alex and Riley. So we want to say a special thank you and a hearty welcome to both of them, as well as our now part of the tribe members, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Risk, Justin, Jackson, Shark, Marion, Diane, Daz, Isabella, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, Steve, Reader Reborn, gasp. And then our Delusions of Grandeur members, Rod, CJ, and of course, Alex joining the tier just recently as well. So huge thank you to everyone who's part of Patreon. If you are curious about Patreon, we'd invite you to go over to cantinacast.com/Patreon, check out the memberships, see if there's one that might suit you best. You get exclusive content just for you guys. You can have an audio-only package. There are video packages to get on top 3 shows from a certain point of view. A little something for everybody. So if you'd like to go check that out, we invite you to do that. cantinacast.com/Patreon.
Moms, kids, grandmas, all are welcome on Patreon, so long as you have a valid credit card. Hey, we've also thanks seriously for everybody that supports the show through Patreon and other means as well. So we do appreciate that. This is so helpful and very humbling, as we've talked about so many times before. Okay, so let's talk about something quickly. Do you want to sing happy birthday or no?
To ourselves. Yeah.
To ourselves.
Yeah. So May 16th, 2011.
That's today. Or wait, today's the 16th. Yeah.
Yeah. The Cantina Cast was born. Mike Rondo, created the show and created everything that you now enjoy. It has evolved over many years, of course, through various iterations. But a hearty happy birthday to the Cantina Cast. A hearty thank you to Mike Rondo, of course, the maker himself, for everything he's done and for everyone who's been a part of the show over the years. Thank you all for making it what it is. We stand on your shoulders, so we want to say a hearty thank you and a happy birthday.
Yeah, 2000. So 12 years.
12 years, yeah.
Let's see, you and I have been on the show now for 4 and 5?
I think, right, getting close to 5 years, 4 to 5 years.
On the halfway mark of the show now. So
yeah, but we've been on more episodes than anybody else. That's the crazy part.
Oh, yeah, that is crazy. I don't know if there's anything to brag about there, but nonetheless, higher numbers seem to be always better in life, just in general, unless it's your blood pressure.
Well, and leave it to Dale to come in strong. OMG, you're ancient compared to some YouTube channels. Now, we've not been on YouTube that long.
Oh, yeah.
It's all on the podcast, but we are ancient in most circles, even podcasts. There are some who are flirting with 10, maybe been around 10 now, but it's a bit rare to find them as long as this one has. So it's just a testament to the show that the guys created, kept going all these years. So yeah, pretty cool achievement. Here's to another 12. I think we said that every year, but still.
Yeah, I don't have a funny sound clip to cue up, so we won't do that. Okay, let's get into, I guess, more formal news, and we'll start with the movies. So recently, Empire Magazine, I say recently, like maybe 2 weeks ago now, they did a kind of summertime movie issue, and there were some tidbits in there from Lucasfilm. Specifically, there was an interview with Kathleen Kennedy. They had kind of breakdowns, nothing really major in terms of revelations, although there are some things that I think we're going to pick out and pull apart here just a little bit. But they talked about the Ahsoka series that's coming out. They talked about Skeleton Crew. They were looking back on Mandalorian at one point. There was a really great interview with like Katie Sackhoff as well. But all of that stuff is out there. I don't know if it's available free or not. I think you can pretty much find all of the quotes out there. But if you have a subscription to them, there's some really cool photos and that sort of thing. But
And this was the magazine with the Indiana Jones on the cover, right?
yeah, I think it was like called the summer 2023 hot issue thing. I can't remember.
Yeah. But you're right, though. There were a few, like in the movies, there were a few tidbits that were, again, kind of noteworthy, at least from a what's going on. Do we talk about them enough? There's not a whole lot there. So one is like Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy. They talk all the time. But as Rian Johnson's popularity has continued to increase, or the success of his movies have increased, like the Knives Out series, basically she confirmed that nothing's really happening anytime soon. And again, this is consistent with what we've heard in the past. Not necessarily surprising. They're moving on in different directions anyway. I say moving on more. They're bringing those projects forward, not waiting on Rian Johnson, clearly. Another one that's always been talked about, of course, is where is Taika Waititi's project going? They say that he is still actively writing. It's a slow process. She wasn't necessarily dogging him in that kind of way by calling it slow, but
he said something similar recently too. That
yeah, exactly.
That's his pace.
That's his process. Yeah, and that's totally fine. So she says that about 2 out of the 3 acts are done. But they need that final act to really see what they have. So again, that one seems like it is progressing, just a little bit further to go. Lando and Rogue Squadron, two projects that we never hear anything about. Apparently, they are still quote unquote on the books. Mm-hmm. They just want them to be great. So again, this kind of tells you that there was maybe with Rogue Squadron in particular, a bit of a retooling, especially if you have any kind of changes, substantial changes, or if you need people to free up. So things are kind of working. But again, this goes back to the more deliberate pace that we think Lucasfilm is going to go forward. That's what they've said. They've said it for the last year or so. And we're getting confirmations of that with all of the movie news that we got throughout Celebration, as well as any other material that's come out, usually through Empire lately, actually. So, but that's kind of the more general news that was part of Empire as far as the movies. Was there any things of note in there, or any things that we missed on that?
No. Well, so I got a question. And so this has been kind of like this emotional roller coaster for some folks, right? Everybody that watched the big Disney Plus kickoff thing, that investors call, whatever it was, we saw back almost like 4 years ago. No, it was like 3-4 years ago at least, right?
Right.
And that's when we first heard about Taika Waititi's movie, Rian Johnson, Rogue Squadron. We had the trailer that came out. They mentioned Lando. I forget who it was they had tied to the Lando. They even had his image up there. I went back and watched this. And so that was when it happened. We talked about when all this stuff kind of felt like it was getting pulled back or getting scrapped, right? I think what we said on the show was, unless it's announced at like Celebration, this is probably more for investors to get spun up and build hype around than for really us, although we are the worst people or consumers of this news, right? Because we will take it, us being the Star Wars populace at large, we will then take this news and spin all kinds of stories and try to monetize on it and do whatever we can to will it into reality, when the true reality is that this is just part of the development process, and they're kind of pulling back the curtain and showing us some of this stuff for other various reasons, right? Not necessarily for us to consume, but I think what you're finding is there are people that get on this roller coaster and they can't get off this emotional roller coaster because we're back again, right? If for some people, I've already seen it out on Twitter, there are people that are just, they're spiraling all over again because they had already made peace with the fact that we weren't going to get Rogue Squadron, that we were not going to get a Rian Johnson one. This is like, it felt so definitive just 4 months ago, like just prior to Celebration really starting to kick up.
Right.
And now we're back again. It's like the old girlfriend, the old boyfriend, the old love is back. The old flame is back, and all your emotions are flaring all over.
Literally, the flame is back.
It's a flame all over again. So I would say, this is great to talk about, but I wouldn't put too much weight into this. Still, even if it is Kathleen, and it was Kathleen Kennedy coming out and doing what everybody said she, quote, learned her lesson from doing in the past. Here she is. She's like tripling down on this. And I think, again, it just comes back to, hey, this stuff is in works. We're excited about it. We'd love to see it happen. Will it happen? They're not really telling us. They're not guaranteeing anything until they get to something like Celebration, or you see an official press release that says Lucasfilm has signed this director and this movie's coming out and we're doing this, whatever. short of that, I don't know that you really need to get too spun up about it. It's fun to talk about, but don't put too much weight into it. You're just going to kill yourself over this stuff.
Yeah, one thing I see frequently the last several weeks is Lucasfilm or Disney rather. Disney, they don't even say Lucasfilm anymore. Disney, here's the next 9 movies they're going to do. And then you get to the article. I don't even read it. I just read the little blurb that goes below it. And they quickly go back to just 3 movies. And they have not talked about 9 movies at all. And titles and everything. It's just clickbait. And I think a lot of people are just looking for that next score, the next big item. But this is all consistent. That's why I really don't even want to belabor some of the stuff. It's just kind of here's what's out there. Interpret it how you would like. It's going to shake out one way or another over the next several years. Mm-hmm. But we know what the next projects are going to be, right? So I mean, those are pretty clear. And if something gets in the kind of gets interjected in between them, hey, cool, great surprises. But that's where we're at right now.
Right.
Now, one of the worst kept secrets, that's a rumor that came out today, Albert. Rumor, yeah, strong rumor, is that the title of Dave Filoni's movie, what's it going to be, Albert?
Let's see. I'm going to guess.
For those listening, he is holding up a book that came out in the 90s by a certain Timothy Zahn.
Oh, am I? I didn't realize that was in front of the screen. Heir to the Empire. Yeah, that'd be my guess. Yeah,
it's supposedly, confirmed, whatever that actually means.
Right.
And again, I think one of the leakers that was credited to this is fairly credible. But again, everybody's kind of, this is what we talked about a few weeks ago. It gets picked up and then everyone is fact. They've all corroborated in a different way, but I think it all comes back to a single person. Mm-hmm. Again, pretty credible in this way. Is the title locked in stone or anything like that? Who knows?
Yeah.
It's a little on the nose compared to what we know about like Heir to the Empire. It's not the same thing, but for them to reuse a title and for it to be about Thrawn, it still very much fits and seems appropriate. And I don't think there's any issue with rehashing a title from Timothy Zahn's book, especially if he's part of the creative process in any kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, look at Dawn of the Jedi recently, right? They rehashed that.
The comic series,
the comic series. We had a rehash in some ways of The Last Jedi, although it was a comic book. I think it was an issue specifically that was released from Marvel.
I think there was a book also that was Last Jedi way back in the 90s or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was. I want to say, yeah, I think you're right. I think there was something. It was called, maybe it was just called Last Jedi. I forget now.
Right.
Tales of the Jedi title as well, right? Yep, that's true.
Yeah, Lauren chiming in there.
That was rehashed. So that's not uncommon. And I mean, there's some pretty good titles out there. And you probably think about it, there probably is a finite number of titles you can call certain things before it starts to get kind of weird and wacky. So Heir to the Empire makes sense. Now, I fully believe that it's not going to be the book that I just held up.
Oh, absolutely not. Right.
I mean, if you read the book, and I've been doing a rereading because I want to do something with the content. Like, I actually think it would be fun to kind of go back and revisit the trilogy, but then also kind of like pick at it and say, hey, this is something that potentially they could work into a new series. And here's who we think might play this role, or here's how we think they could possibly take this angle and still kind of be true to the source type thing. But if you read the book, it's so like, I mean, there's so many things that can't get done, but there are some things in there that I think that could be rehashed that are conceptually really fun. It would make, play well in the Mando verse, right? So I think that'd be a lot of fun to do. But I think the title will probably get used. Bits and pieces of it will be there. We already got Wayland, right? The mountain, it's already been used. So we know that's there. And that was kind of, I mean, this rumor that the Heir to the Empire was going to be redone, even before Dave Filoni was tagged to any project, this happened at the beginning of season 2 of The Bad Batch, because we were already talking about it. Or was it the end of season 1? End of season 1.
Right, end of season 1 with Tantus, yeah.
Yeah, when they announced Tantus and they showed Wayland, we went into the whole, there was a bunch of, a bunch of theories about what that was going to look like. So, at that time, there were credible folks saying that they were planning to do some sort of retelling, rehashing of Heir to the Empire. And it didn't get a whole lot of traction until, of course, season 2 of The Bad Batch came out. And then here we are full circle now with all the rumors circulating about this Heir to the Empire movie.
Right. And Dave Filoni's on the record of saying, look, we introduced a lot of stuff with Bad Batch. We've laid the groundwork in a lot of different ways. There has to be some sort of culmination of that. There has to be some sort of resolution to some of these things. When they happen and where they happen might be subject to interpretation or just see how time rolls out. But they're there. I mean, so they exist. There's a certain amount of truth and legends, if you will, from that respect. And I think that's totally cool. I think it's great. We have these things. They are part of canon. Let's see where we go. Let's see how we move these stories into a new canon. Just like New Jedi Order, it's another title, right? That's been around forever. Can they go back and do New Jedi Order? No, not at all. It's not possible in almost every respect, right? Maybe a few characters here and there, but that overall storyline, more or less, is just never going to happen, right? Yep. A lot of those characters can never happen. The Solos don't have those 3 kids, those types of things.
But somebody else might have the 3 kids.
Oh, whatever. Don't start with me.
I'm kidding.
But I mean, but no, I'm still. I mean, it's fine. We know we're going to get some resolution to some of this stuff, but anyway, so that's kind of the general movie news. We got a lot of things tonight, though, Albert. So I want to make sure we have enough time to get through some of it. So I'm going to move to the next one real quick. So Disney's earnings calls. You had mentioned earnings calls before, investors calls. Well, Disney's House of Mouse is kind of on fire lately, at least from a public opinion. They've lost subscriptions on Disney Plus, some estimating as many as like 4 million. We have the CFO, Christine McCarthy, saying that some content is going to be removed. They might reduce and write down some of that, some of those shows. Basically, they by the tune of about $1.5 to $1.8 billion. Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know exactly what that means, usually that means that they completely remove and almost delete the content. Not in the vault. It's just kind of done. You take a loss and it's dead, forever. Now, what that is, no one have no idea.
Right. And that's,
yeah. And again, there's a lot of loser content that every studio makes that you're just, you put a lot out there and you hope everyone loves it. Again, things have evolved with Disney Plus as well.
Yep.
So this is going to be changing. Now, Uncle Bob and Ms. McCarthy also state that a lower volume of content will be produced. Again, not surprising because they've been saying this really since Bob Iger came back into the picture and said, look, we really put a lot out there. We really went all in on this. We were exploring. We're a pathfinder in this kind of business, those type of things, right? So not surprising. But again, a lot of, potentially negative viewed type of news. No specific mention of Star Wars. But you and I will talk about this. Is there any risk of Star Wars is there really any risk to Star Wars besides what we already know? The path seems kind of clear for what we're going, but any side effects or any direct impact to us with all of this news that's come out?
So I'll answer that. I think I'll answer the question with a more general statement about this news and potentially what it could mean. So for Star Wars, it feels like I've never done the research, but I'm a Disney Plus subscriber. I scroll through more than Star Wars, believe it or not. And when I look at all the content, it feels in pale comparison. Star Wars content feels in pale comparison to the other stuff that's on there. There's so much more that I never even touch. Like I just, for whatever reason, a million reasons why I don't get into it. Nothing personal against it. I just don't. So is it in danger? I think the answer is yes. I think anything is certainly on the table depending on what they're trying to cut and what their strategy is around this. But you got to remember too, they have to make sure that this platform is sustainable. They have to make sure this platform is attractive, right? They have to. Right. You have to be able to pay your $4.99 or $9.99 or $12, whatever the heck you're paying now. I was thinking about that today. Like people pay all kinds of different amounts for this. I don't know how they gauge that.
Supposedly it's going to go up again too, but
yeah,
we'll see.
And that would probably make sense. And I want to come back to that too because it's my second point in this conversation. Is kind of the leveling that we're seeing here. But so the amount of content. So there are certain titles that just have to be there, right? Are they going to get rid of? I don't know. Avengers 2, the movie? No, they're never going to get rid of it, right? That is one of the things. That's a staple. That's something that pulls people in. They just announced, I think today, the Indiana Jones trilogies, all the four movies, sorry.
And the young adventures of Indiana Jones too.
The Chronicle stuff, right?
Yeah,
all
Chronicles.
That's coming to Disney Plus, right? That is, they're going to try to lure people in with that and kind of ride the wave and the hype of the new movie. So that stuff will probably never go away. But man, there are so many things on there that I've never heard of and I will never touch. All kinds of exclusive stuff that was made for Disney Plus. I don't know nobody knows what the numbers are on that stuff, right? So I imagine, are they going to cut things back? Sure. Are they going to cut their own head off on this? Heck, no, they're not going to do that, right?
Right. They still have to present something of value. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And that's my point. So when you look at Star Wars, I mean, could droids be on the table? Sure. Right. It's not. I would doubt that people are like slamming that thing in mass consumption to go watch the old Droids cartoon or the Ewoks cartoon. Those two things probably feel like something that potentially could be on the cutting board. But by and large, I think, because the Clone Wars is still relevant, Rebels is still relevant. All right, maybe Resistance is on the board too. But for the most part, I would say, and I love Resistance.
Solo is not on the board to be cut, just to be clear.
Solo's not on the board. Right, yeah. So, I mean, there's certain things that possibly could go. There's things that may or may not. It's always weird, too, because when it was announced, right, the one thing that got me really excited about the Disney Plus was they actually pitched this as, we're bringing everything back, right? Every piece of content that had ever been made that was still racially okay to show, politically okay to show, is going to make its way to Disney Plus at some point. Remember, I think it was Iger that was out here, kind of rah-rah-rahing that entire thing when they announced it. And a lot of stuff has come back, but a lot of stuff hasn't. What I don't really understand, and this is more technical, is like, what does it cost you, right? It's just data. It's out there. And if people are consuming it, is it the amount of space? Is it, I don't really understand the technical reason behind it all. Like why you can't have content that's just streaming available. It just feels like it's just added value. And I think that was their approach initially. But for me, when I hear we're going to be pulling stuff back and it's coming off the vault, then I wonder, like, okay, well then why would you do that? Like there's got to be some other way. There's got to be some other technical reason as to why you would pull that back, and not necessarily because you don't want stuff out there, or maybe the catalog is getting too big, or it's hard to navigate with all the content, or there's no logical way to organize it or something, right? There might be other things that are being factored into here, but it doesn't make sense for me for them to pull stuff back, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a few things. There's always cost, right? A cost of servers, cost of the technical side, like you're talking about. And again, are there also other licensing type of agreements that are in the background? Maybe Disney's not the 100% owner; they have to share it, right?
Yeah, that's
in some way. And again, we don't really know all the dynamics of it. I think you did mention the vault, though, and this is what's speculated, is that Disney will go back to putting things in the vault, which they would do for a long period of time. This is how you and I grew up with Disney content, especially the classic animated stuff, right? Or the old TV shows that we would grow up that were even before our time. They would just not be in the catalog. You couldn't go pick up the VHS, or you couldn't go pick up the DVD or the Blu-ray unless they did it. Hey, for a limited time only, Little Mermaid is coming out of the vault, that type of thing, right?
And everybody ran. Like you ran, pre-ordered, picked it up.
Because it was and then you had new content that was kind of behind the scenes with it. So it was, they had to invest some amount of money in it, but it was just a cash cow to be able to re-release this content, generate that excitement. It's a cleaned up, remastered, whatever it might be, So, the vault is an interesting one. And I think the vault is the one part of Star Wars, like from a relevant Star Wars content, or what you and I might consider more relevant content. The vault is an interesting one of whether or not something like that ventures its way into Star Wars. Because that would be a little bit more concerning about what that is. Because when I view Disney Plus, I want to be able to watch Star Wars whenever I want.
Exactly.
And there's enough versions of Star Wars in the Blu-ray and DVD market to where that would be kind of silly, in my opinion, to do that. But maybe they say, no, the market's flooded. But in this digital only kind of world, to me, that's a potential really big game changer. In a digital only world, the only way you'd be able to get that content is to go buy it digitally.
Well, it's funny. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but funny you said that, because today, or actually it wasn't today, I guess it was late last week when this news broke officially. And I started thinking to myself, well, you're right. The exact same thing. This is a game changer. I purposely stopped buying media with the assumption that it was always going to be available to me. And I'm not saying I was naive to think, oh, well, they'll never take this away from me. It was just, I never really understood that. I never really got that there would be a compelling reason to do so. But now, if that's the reality for somebody like Disney, and Netflix has done it, and all kinds of other, I get it. All the other streaming services have already done this, right? But again, the original pitch was this stuff was always going to be available. And so I haven't bought a freaking physical copy of anything in forever. I mean, I still have the digital copies that I buy through Apple. I buy all my movies through there. Right. But I started thinking, maybe I am going to start buying more. Maybe I'm going to go buy the Indiana Jones, 4K versions that are coming out individually here as well. Those were announced just recently too. I may go buy those. I may go actually buy all of the Star Wars movies physically on 4K that I've been putting off for so long, So I don't know if that's what they want. I don't know if that's what they were trying to do, but
you are single-handedly going to put Disney back in business.
I will do whatever I can, Mr. Iger. You call on me. No, I'm kidding.
You will do what you must. Yes.
do what must be done.
Yeah. Well, hey,
well, quick, just one last thing on this. My take on this, and again, this is just my take. I have no real reason to, or no way to back this up. But it does feel like with so many other things in our lives that we are coming off a post-COVID kind of world and environment. And I think Disney Plus, for all of its success, a lot of that was built upon the idea that we were all inside and
Right place, right time, right?
exactly. And so I think what we're starting to see is maybe that normalization of where Disney Plus really should be and how much content is really out there.
It's a recalibration of sorts. I completely agree with you. Yeah.
And I think in some ways they should say it, but I get why they wouldn't, because it feels very cop-outish to say, oh, it's a COVID. I mean, we've been blaming COVID on everything for the better part of 2 years now, right? So I get it. We can't keep blaming COVID, but for something like this, I don't know. It makes sense. If your success was built upon COVID and now it's not, and I'm not taking anything away from the quality of the content and what they came out with when they did, but I know that I'm not inside as much as I used to be, and I know a lot of people aren't inside as much as they used to be, and so that's probably why these subs are falling. At the end of the day, I don't know that it really bothers me all that much. I don't really put a lot of stock into subs and all. It's more of an investor thing. Just give me the content you said you're going to give me, and I'll be quite happy with that.
Right. So again, something to watch and see how this evolves. And of course, as it impacts Star Wars, we'll definitely bring it to y'all. But, a lot of doom and gloom. Let's get a little bit of good news, Albert. How about that?
Sure.
All right. So Andor was recently honored with a prestigious Peabody Award. So the 83rd annual Peabody Awards came out. And for those that don't know, these are what makes the Peabody Awards so special is that these are about substance. They're not the flashy things like the Academy Awards or anything like that. This is really one of their bylines, I believe, is something like stories that matter, right? So that's what they do. And so Andor was honored in the film category, in the entertainment category rather, for 2022 content, and was one of those award winners. So congratulations to Tony Gilroy, all of the people involved with Andor from top to bottom, every which way of that production. Because again, fantastic comments. Some of the best Star Wars content we've ever had, I think, just from a storytelling perspective alone, but just the overall production was absolutely amazing. So a huge congratulations to them.
Yeah. There was, I forget who it was. I want to say it was one of the Scotts, Ridley Scott maybe, who commented on this award. And he said that he had watched Andor and he called it cinematic. And I thought, that's a really cool way of, I don't even know that we've talked about it always had kind of that feel, but retrospectively now, looking back on what Disney has offered for Star Wars, that one is very cinematic. And so probably, and maybe not, and I'm not saying it was deserving or this award was deserving because it was cinematic. I'm just saying it's nice to know that it's being seen and commented on by people that are well respected in the industry who have gone on to do some pretty amazing cinematic pieces themselves, to go back and look at television, because sometimes television always kind of gets the second, third chair, right? It's not really, It's not movies, but to have somebody like him come out and say that, this was a cinematic experience. I think
in the show notes, we'll have a link out to the little quote that the Peabody Award published on their website, so you can go out there and check that out and read the whole quote about what their view of Andor was.
Mm-hmm.
Very much along those lines. And again, they focus on things that they believe have an impact on more than just the pure entertainment value. So it's kind of a neat award to be recognized for in Star Wars, something that, let's be honest, we've always felt a little bit, shaded by.
Shunned?
Yeah, I mean, the awards. I mean, Andor's done pretty well for itself. It has garnered awards across multiple awards industry recognized things or whatever. I don't follow this stuff too closely in that regard because awards don't matter. But it is nice to see this recognized in a very official and kind of a more artsy kind of way, I guess, to an extent, which again, never really expected for Star Wars. Okay, you ready to get back to the more less than positive news, Albert?
Sure.
Well, let's stick with Andor. How about that? So Tony Gilroy was under a lot of pressure from Abdullah Saeed, who is another member of the WGA, the Writers Guild, of course, and had a lot of a real tongue lashing on Tony Gilroy, just basically saying that, it's not possible to finish a script right away and then say you're just going to switch to producer duties. And so he got really animated about this to the point of saying, let's see the scripts. Let's compare the content word for word, side by side. If it's any different, then kick him out and throw him out. It was really, I'm not exaggerating at all.
No, I read it.
Yeah, it was really surprising. And so Tony Gilroy basically publicly came out and said that he had ceased producing duties. Now, it was a little unclear to me if he had already done that before this tirade, it just wasn't public, or if he did this after the fact or whatever it might have been. But of course, Disney's come under fire, as have others. Of course, union busting type of activities with the notes that they had sent out. We talked about this a week or so ago. But man, I mean, just it's disappointing that this is what's happened. But also, I think just disappointing. I mean, if you ever wonder about how really crazy, not crazy. I don't want to pin anybody in that kind of way, but just how energetic and how much passion can go into strikes, into unions, into worker rights and things like that. You see it taking place, whether you agree with it or not. You see it taking place very front and center with Writers Guild of America, and now we're seeing it directly impacting, kind of Star Wars content. Mm-hmm. Because now we don't know if, is that going to have an effect on Andor? We also have a rumor that even though Mando season 4 isn't really announced, it's anticipated that this will have an effect on being able to, it may push that production back, which again seems reasonable. Doesn't really seem that far-fetched. Is it official news? No, because they've not even announced it, but it again seems reasonable. But any thoughts or takes on the whole WGA and where it's at with maybe Tony Gilroy in particular?
Well, I have thoughts, probably not worth sharing on live television or live streaming, because let's just say everybody knows who Abdullah Saeed is now, right? And the way he went about it, I mean, come on. Like, it just felt like there could have been a better way to do this. And if it's just my opinion, in reading the text and reading all of the stuff that was said, it did feel like there was, he was standing up for the right thing. I'm not saying anything about that. Definitely standing up for the right thing. The way he went about it, kind of a punk, kind of in terms of the things that he was saying about Gilroy. I mean, this is Abdul Saeed versus Tony Gilroy. It's like it felt like someone was going after them because of other reasons,
It really felt like that, didn't it?
Yeah. Buried in the noble work or noble effort of, hey, we're all on a writer's strike and you're not any better than any of us. And so you need to get in line and you need to do what you said you were going to do. He's not wrong on that part. I 100% agree with that. It's just the way you go about it. It's like my dad always said, there's always a wrong way to do something and a right way to do something. And was this the right way? In my opinion, no. But, hey, he got his 15 minutes of fame or whatever. And I'm not taking anything away from him. He's written other things, stuff that I've never heard of, but apparently has been very successful. So I don't want to, diminish any of that, the work that he's done. But, he's made a name for himself now. So good on him. Go get him, Abdul Saeed.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy whenever you see scab put in capital letters in this kind of social media world.
And scabbing is like, it's whenever there's a strike going on, you're still trying to do work around, like on the side, right?
You cross the lines of sort, or you cross the picket lines the way it used to be, done. Of course, now it's more virtual than anything else. But
and for me, it's like I'm trying to not make this personal, but I hold Tony Gilroy in high regard for what he's given us in Andor in particular. So I'm kind of defensive about it and calling this dude a punk, but. Again, there's better ways that probably could have gone about this, but social media, taking the social media in that way, and then, I don't know, that's not cool, but okay.
Yeah, but again, the effects of the writer guilds are going to be far-reaching if this lingers on, and you could just see the passion behind it and the energy behind it, and these are very serious topics to the writers in particular. So we want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and they're all compensated as they're supposed to be, or as most appropriate, of course. So we do support that, but also again, kind of right away, wrong way potentially. But then again, you and I are not in that kind of environment, so it's difficult to understand to be fair. But anyway, so again, the effects of the WGA strike, definitely something to continue to watch and see how this evolves over the next weeks or months. Hopefully not months. Hopefully this is rather short-lived and cooler heads will prevail. We'll have a deal in place, so we're not talking about this in 3 months saying, where's our Star Wars content? Life is over.
I don't think life will be over. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. What do you want to get to here? We got some...
Oh, boy. Well, hey, real quick on the book front, if you are a fan of the From a Certain Point of View, not you, From a Certain Point of View books, good news for you. Return of the Jedi From a Certain Point of View has actually been moved up to August 29th as a release date. So that is pretty cool if you are enjoying those short stories and those audiobooks as well. So look for that on your shelves here in just a few months. It's not affected by the WGA.
Not affected. Pre-ordered and ready to go. Can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, how about we get through maybe just a little bit of Ahsoka quotes? You know, we had talked there was just a deluge of quotes and things like that. So maybe we'll pull a couple of these out here. Any that have really struck you as interesting? The one from Mary Elizabeth Winstead is the one that really struck me. But any that have caught your eye?
So I think one of the ones for me was just, and I mean, we saw it in the trailer. Well, I'm trying to now. Did we see Sabine ignite the green lightsaber?
That was in the secret. That was in the secret trailer. Yeah.
Okay, it's like I'm trying to remember, like, what have we seen that was officially released, and what did we go out and sell our souls to get?
Right.
Other means. But there's a scene in there where she ignites the green lightsaber. Allegedly, it's Ezra's, and I did that part was kind of cool. Her talking about how it was really great to finally have it out there, right? That people would have finally get to see this, because up until then, in these like real quick interviews, she's talking about how she's been doing so much training, and people are like, you fire a blaster, like what training are you doing? But she couldn't say,
Right.
I've been training with a lightsaber. So it was just a cute quote from her. What I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to find it here now. We've got like a wall of text here.
Right.
But she says, I'm really glad it's out there. It's been really hard talking about my fight training without talking about the fact that it's saber training, which is literally all I've been doing for so long. So it's great that that we know that finally she's going to be able to use that lightsaber as well. And then they kind of asked her this last piece about what could she tease from coming from her, and she says it's not just part of her journey, not just the saber itself, but what comes with that and what that means and what mindset it takes to wield that weapon. So there's, I mean, I don't know,
Which kind of alludes back to the dark saber training that with Kanan, right?
yeah, exactly, yeah. There was. Well, and so I read that, and the first thing that comes to mind is like, okay, is she? I hate to say force sensitive because she's not force sensitive, but I mean, she's talking about the mindset that it takes to wield, the lightsaber. What does it mean that she's using it? Has she been getting training? Has Ahsoka been training her? I don't know. I mean, it begs a lot of questions, but yet it's hard to pin anything down on a map with the stinking series because I don't know where they're going to start. Where are we going to land? Like we've seen the beginning, so. Immediately I think, oh, we're going to just start and pick up right after season 4 of Rebels. And the reality is it may be just that one opening scene. And then it says 10 years later, and then we're in the future. So then I've got to fill that gap in. So like, is that where the training happened? It's just a lot of questions that run through my mind, but it certainly was a tease. It got me thinking a lot of different things there. What about you?
Yeah, and I mean, and this ties back into like Rosario Dawson's comments too, that this isn't going to be any prep work. Like they're jumping right in. This isn't an Easter egg fest. It's not. And we'd kind of debated, is it hopefully it doesn't deliver on just setting things up for a movie. Things have got to have substance within the Disney Plus series in order to lead up to a movie. They have to kind of do all of it. You can't just do everything to lead up into a big event. And Rosario Dawson has definitely been doubling down on that, saying, this is to quote, it's not just little Easter eggs. It's not just these couple of lines from a brief dialogue with Luke. This is where we really get into the meat of it and go to full throttle on the mission. So again, talking that this is a lot of action within the series. Some of what, I mean, and granted, Sabine wouldn't be fighting with the lightsaber and training and all of this good stuff if that weren't true. So very, consistent messages there. So it's cool to have that confirmation, from kind of both sides. But one of the things I really liked though was the Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who was of course going to play Hera, and she was talking about the Ghost Crew. And she was talking about family, and she says it's the through line of the show, right? And things like that are so important for us to hear, especially as Rebels fans. And to go on, the quote says, the strength that they need to get through what they're facing requires them to come back together and redefine that family, right? And so again, to your point, filling in the gaps and stuff, it sounds like they're going to fill in some of the gaps for us a little bit. Are we going to get all of the reasons why the family is kind of broken apart and gone their separate ways? Maybe pieces of it here and there, but the really interesting part of that is how do they come back together? How do they start to work together? What is their mission? What is their unifying reason for coming back together and really bringing the family or reuniting the family, in her words?
Yeah. There's, and I mean this in all seriousness. The other one that stood out to me was the Loth Cat. So if you didn't see the article, again, this is coming from Empire Magazine. There's a line in there where Bordizzo's talking about the Loth Cat. So we saw the Loth Cat in the trailer. We've had one before in quote live action. CGI. I think it was CGI. I don't think it was a prop or
Right,
like a
in
Muppet or
Mandalorian,
whatever.
right?
In the Mandalorian. And Sanctuary was the name of that episode. But
I believe so, yeah.
yeah, so we've seen it before, but apparently there's going to be a Loth cat that is going to be like a chopper or kind of like a member of the family going forward. And Bordiza was talking about that Loth cat, and she says, that's my little buddy. The complexity design, I mean, it has a real skeleton in her because that's how you control such intense facial expressions and everything. If you thought Baby Yoda's reaction shots broke the internet, just wait. It would look snarl, it looked cute, says Dawson. Really, the detail was next level. So, and then she went on to say, move over Grogu. So, as somebody who loves Loth cats,
it's a practical prop for those that may not have been able to infer from all of that.
Yeah,
it's a practical prop. Yeah.
Yep. So we're gonna get, I guess, a Loth cat that is kind of like the family cat or the family dog. Although Chopper is probably the family dog, but the family cat now.
Oh, he's the foul mouthed uncle, I think, at this point.
That's right. Yeah. Who won't leave and just keeps drinking at the table.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. This is cool. Like the fact that we're going to get something like this, and another pull. And it's one of the things. It's not necessary, in my opinion, but if you're going to do something like Rebels, there was certain the characters themselves, the themes, Chopper. There were moments in there that were kind of playing to the younger crowd. And when I was looking at the series, I thought, where is that going to come from? Because, I mean, Chopper could carry it. I'm not saying he couldn't. But without Ezra, which was kind of the second biggest pull, or maybe the primary biggest pull between her, and they've grown up. So who is going to be what pulls in the younger crowd? And maybe it's going to be this Loth cat. Maybe it is going to be like a second coming of Grogu in some ways. And people are going to fall in love with this thing. And it's going to be cute and cuddly. And it's going to be on everything we see for the next, 2-3 years and beyond. So I'd like to see that.
It's a great question, though. I'm curious how they handled Chopper, because Chopper is so, for lack of a better word, animated in the animated series, right? I mean, he has a lot of movement. You were showing on the last show about the Chopper little action figure. Yeah, the Chatterback thing, where he moves all around. He's very dynamic. Just everything moves everywhere on that thing. So
yeah,
how do they bring that to the live screen, and live action is going to be really interesting. And maybe they won't get along, and that'll be the tension that we have in these episodes. It'll really be Chopper and Loth cat, and Chopper's jealousy of the Loth cat and how it's really attached himself to, whichever character.
I want to know what they named it. I'd love for them to name
Doom.
it Jabba.
Name it Doom.
No, not Doom.
It's really just Kanan. Kanan is now a Loth cat.
Yeah. No, I was thinking Jabba because that was the name that Ezra had used
right
at one point when he was.
That would be funny.
So yeah, looking forward to that. And there's some other stuff in there. We'll have to maybe come back to that if there's a slow news week or whatever. There were a couple more things, but again, it's on the Empire magazine, so go check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have more news. We're gonna talk about in our Patreon show tonight. We're gonna go through the Skeleton Crew Patreon spotlight and go through that celebration trailer. Speculate on the 40 or so seconds we can actually watch, what that actually means. When we come back on Sunday, we have a little more Skeleton Crew news we can share a little bit that come out this week. Of all things, at an Edmonton Oilers game for hockey. So a little teaser there for you. But anyway, so a little bit of news that have come out. We'll share that later on this week when we do the show on Sunday. But yeah, maybe we should leave it there then.
Yes. No, thanks for everybody for joining on this rescheduled of the Waystation. And this week we are already kind of shaping up to have quite a bit of news here come Sunday. So again, we'll do this all over this Sunday, 9 p.m. Central, provided we don't have any technical issues. We'll be back for that. So, any final shout outs or anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah, a quick shout out to those in the live stream for us tonight: Steph, Jonathan, Sky, Jeff, Lauren, Dale, Kathy, JJ Skywalker, Qui-Gon J, Lego Cat 3000. If you are listening to the podcast, thank you so much. If you'd like to come out and join the live stream, participate in the chat, usually on Sundays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. Central, cantinacast.com/YouTube. Also, if you are a Patreon member of the Now Part of the Tribe tier and up, at 10 p.m. Central, you have a dedicated link in Patreon that you can go and watch the live stream for the Patreon spotlights, usually on Sunday. Is that right? Yeah, Sunday. And then Thursday nights, we do the Tatooine Trading Post, where we share a little bit of show and tell, what we've accumulated over the week, or just some of our favorite collectible items there. So please do go check that out if you are interested in that. And we'll hopefully see you here in just a few minutes.
Yes. Okay, guys, I say this all the time, and I've never given the full context for anybody that listens to the audio. We actually run credits. So, like, if you're a Patreon member, you get to see your name in the credits. And I've got them all updated, believe it or not. I'm actually up to date. I don't know the last time I actually did a show where I wasn't behind. So
Hold on, let me go check Patreon because someone probably signed up.
right, that's usually what happens. Somebody signs up while we're live, and I've got to go back and update it. So no, it's a good problem to have. So
Well
we'll
done,
see
sir.
you guys here in just let's see, 14 minutes or so.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.